So good morning, everybody. So I continue the program. My name is Jarkko Koskela, and I give you an introduction to the FAO's work in the area of forest-centric resources and focusing on the global plan of action. So firstly, about the definition. So in the FAO work, we don't refer everything we may find in forest, but with the forest-centric resources, we refer to the heritable materials maintained within and between or among the tree and other woody species that have actually some sort of value. And in species-wise, we of course mainly focus on forest trees, but also woody shrubs, palms, and bamboo, which are managed in the forestry context, and which may also provide more broadly ecosystem services and environmental functions of forest. It is also perhaps important to mention or stress that from the genetic point of view, forest trees are quite different from the agricultural crops or the domesticated animals, in the sense that most forest trees are still wild or semi-wild, and we have only a handful of tree species which have been domesticated to the level of the agricultural crops. This includes some species of poplars and eucalyptus, for example. So FAO started working in this area some 50 years ago, and over the years has provided technical support to the member countries and also promoted the regional and international collaboration on forest-centric resources. So the activities have ranged from helping countries to collect seed, to establish international provenance trials, promoting conservation efforts, and all the way to the capacity building and networking. For the past 10 years or so, this work on forest-centric resources has happened under the umbrella of the FAO Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, which basically most of the FAO member countries are also members of this commission. It was established in 1983, focusing on crop genetic resources, but in 1995 its mandate was to cover biodiversity for food and agriculture in a more broader sense, and also in that context, forest-centric resources became part of the agenda of this commission. More recent work, back in 2007, the Commission requested FAO to prepare the first State of the World's Forest Genetic Resources report, and also in 2009 it established a specific intergovernmental technical working group to support this process. And then the Commission considered the draft report in 2013. So the preparation of this report took place mainly between 2010 and 2012, where FAO held, together with its partners, a number of regional and sub-regional workshops. 5 thematic studies were also conducted, and of course, like the Global Forest Resources Assessment, this exercise relied on the work done by the countries providing reports in this area. So the report was published in 2014, and this is part of this similar global assessment reports the Commission has produced in other areas, and this morning you also heard about the latest assessment report on the state of the world's biodiversity for food and agriculture. We also had a country report from India prepared, or this preparation was led by the Institute of Forest Genetics and Tree Breeding. And the main findings of the report can be summarized in these 4 areas of action recommended based on the findings of the report. So basically, first is the information. There's a need to have more information on forest genetic resources and have a better access to this information. Secondly, there's a need for improving the conservation effort, both in situ and ex situ. There's a need to also promote sustainable use, development and management of forest genetic resources and have better policies, capacities and capacity building in this area. So as a follow-up to this global report, the global plan of action was developed already in parallel when the global report was being finalized. So the Intergovernmental Technical Working Group developed the draft, or basically identified the strategic priorities for action. This was then considered by the Commission and endorsed, and in June 2013 the FAO conference adopted this document. It's basically, it's the voluntary in nature, and it relies on these 4 priority areas for action and identified altogether 27 priorities, which are mainly at the national level, but some also at the regional and at the global level. And of course, there are so many priorities that the importance of different priorities differs between the regions and of course between different countries. The implementation of this global plan of action, several regional networks on forest genetic resources have taken an active role and prepared sort of regional strategies looking at the priorities which are most relevant for a given region. In Asia, there is Asia Pacific Forest Genetic Resources Program, which was established in 2003. So they identified first the regional priorities in 2014, and in 2017 they prepared a regional strategy how the implementation of the global plan of action could be supported at the regional level. Also in 2017, this strategy was presented to the FAO Asia Pacific Forestry Commission, which welcomed it and also invited the network to inform the Commission on the implementation of this regional strategy in its forthcoming sessions. At the global level, the Commission, also the FAO, has been promoting the implementation of this global plan of action. FAO has prepared firstly the targets, indicators and verifiers to monitor the implementation of this action plan. We have also developed the voluntary guidelines for developing a national or subnational strategies for forest genetic resources to help countries to translate the priorities into action. And also FAO, we have developed the funding strategy for countries to seek financial resources for this work. Furthermore, just a couple of weeks ago, FAO presented the first report on the implementation of the global plan of action to the Commission on genetic resources for food and agriculture. And this is based on the 44 country progress reports, and we also received reports from one regional network, an international organization. So basically in the monitoring this implementation, we are trying to focus on 2 things. First is sort of what mechanism or structures or strategies countries should have in place as a response to the global plan of action, ranging from the inventory of forest genetic resources, conservation programs, tree seed systems, breeding programs, and so forth. And the second part, we are trying to look at the species level, what is the state of conservation, use and development of forest genetic resources. Looking at the global level, the findings based on the limited amount of country reports we received, many of those countries who reported progress, many of them have taken action or at least initiated actions. And when you look at the various mechanisms and structures, the situation is rather good. Many of the reporting countries have these in place. But then having the species-specific data and information remains a challenge. Altogether, the country progress reports listed 1,145 tree and other woody plant species. This may sound much, but of course, if you keep in mind that we have the latest assessment that globally there are some 60,000 tree species. So of course, not these are all relevant in a forestry context, but the efforts could be focusing on more species. And often the problem is that countries have difficulties having the information available. If you look at the situation from those countries in Asia that reported, we can find that India, together with China and the Republic of Korea, basically reported having all these structures and mechanisms in place, as indicated here in a green color. The Indian progress report listed altogether 233 species, but of course not all these species were, for example, included in a conservation program, or there were no detailed information on the distribution range of these species in the country. If you look at the species specific data, it may not be surprise to you, and teak is the sort of the one species in terms of the conservation efforts as well as the use, if we look at the amount of seed stands in India. Then a few words about the management of forest genetic resources in India. Probably you are more familiar with that than me. But since 2011, the Institute of Forest Genetics and Tree Breeding has been carrying out training events or courses for the Indian Forest Service staff. And some of you may have heard about it, may even attend it, or may attend in the future. Basically, they have produced also this training manual, which basically covers different aspects related to the management of forest genetic resources. Also, as a new information, our focal point in India informed that the ministry has recently endorsed a new project to establish the national program on forest genetic resources in India. And I think the funding seems to be still open, but the idea is that this would be covering all states in India. And it seems to be likely that some of you may be hearing about this program or contributing for it in the near future. To summarize, a few points about the future work we are carrying out here at FAO. So we'll continue supporting countries in implementing the global plan of action, and also continue collaborating with the regional networks and relevant international organizations. The plan is also that we will utilize the data countries have provided on monitoring the implementation of the global plan of action in developing new FAO field projects in different countries. And lastly, we have been requested to start the preparation of the second report on the state of the world's forest genetic resources, and basically this process will start mid this year. And the plan is that this report would be released in 2023. In this context, we also planning to have regional briefings and workshops with the networks in different regions. And also the plan at the moment is to have again a joint workshop with the network in Asia this autumn, probably in Indonesia. We will find some more information on our website. We are currently upgrading this part of the website, so you'll probably find a more sophisticated version in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you.